But okay, here we go. We're up to the seventh parak of Masechta Shavuos, and we'll start from the beginning of on Daf Mem Daled Amud Beis. So we learned many times that the Torah tells the Torah is mechayev a shvua, obligates a shvua under certain circumstances, and usually they basically boil down to three things. Three things in the Torah you're obligated to take an oath. One obligation to take an oath is if you're a moide b'miktsas, if you agree to part of the loan, someone has a claim against you of 100 and you agree to 50, that you owe 50, you have to take a shvuah. If there's an aid echad against you, right? You deny everything. You deny that you owe money, but there's one witness that says you do owe the money. You have to take a shvuah that you don't owe the money. And then there's a shvuah if you are, let's say, a free unpaid watchman, and then the item was stolen from you. You have to take a shvuah that hey, you didn't do anything wrong. You watched it properly. So the Mishnah is just discussing the general rule of a shvuah of the Torah. So the Mishnah says like this: Kol hanishboim shebetorah. Anytime you swear, the Torah makes you swear. Nishboim, the defendant swears v'loy mishalmin, and he doesn't have to pay. So that's the general rule. If you claim something, someone makes a claim against you, and you're obligated to take a shvuah from the Torah, because either, let's say, you're a moed b'miktzah, so there's an eid echad against you. You swear that, let's say, you only own half, or you don't owe anything, and then you don't have to pay. The following people, nishboim v'noitlin. These people are allowed to swear, and they actually get paid. They actually swear that you owe me money, and then they can take their payment. So one of the examples, the Mishnah is going to go through all the examples. Hasochir, if someone is an employee and he claims he was not paid. Vahan nigzal, and the next case is a nigzal. If there was a guy who claims something was stolen from him. Now, he just doesn't say, and he accuses somebody and he has good reason. There's a high probability that he got the gazlan. There has to be a high probability. We're going to see all this in the Mishnah. Vanechbol, somebody who got injured by somebody, and he has a high probability of the person who did it. So he claims that that person did it. So he swears that you did it and you owe me the money. We're going to go through all these cases right now in the Mishnah. Hi, Lewis, we just began. We're on Mem Daled Amud Beis by the Mishnah, 4 lines into it. The Mishnah is explaining, Hasochir Ketzad. What's the case of an employee that would swear that he didn't get paid, and in that case, he would be able to get paid based on his shvuah, his oath. Amalai, he told his employer, you owe me my wages. Who I met, but the employer says, Nasati, didn't I pay you? And the employee says, Loy natalti, I never received anything. So then, who makes the oath? The employee. Who nishba v'noital. The employee makes a shvuah, and he can collect. And the reason is because we assume that the owner, the employer was a person that was very busy, and he thinks he paid his employee, but he really did not. So we put the shvuah onto the employee, and he swears that he didn't get paid, and then the employer has to pay him. Rabbi Yehuda says, not so fast. Until the employer makes a partial admission. Ketzad, what's the case? Amaloi, the employee said, Ten li schari chamishim dinar sheyesh li biyadcha. You owe me 50 dinars. That was my wages. V'hu ayman, he says, his kabalter dinazov. I already paid you half your wages, 25 dinars, right? So I only owe you 25. So now really the employer should swear because he's a moed b'miktzas. And Rabbanan put the shvuah on the employee. He could swear he didn't get paid, and he could collect the entire 50 dinars. That's how it works. But it has to be like a moed b'miktzas transfer from the employer to employee. That's the way Rabbi Yehuda learns. But if the employer was a koifa bakol, he denied everything, then we wouldn't allow the employee to swear and collect. We'll see about this in the Gemara. maybe tomorrow. Nigzal. Let's say someone claims that an item was stolen from him, and he must have a high probability of the person that stole it from him. Ketzad. Hoya ma'idim, there were witnesses, shenichnas lebeische. They saw a gazlan go into his house, because the gazlan wasn't really a gazlan. He walked into somebody's house because he said, this person owes me money. And he never paid his debts. I'm walking right into his house and walking out with his kiddush becher. So he went lemashkana shloi b'shus. He wanted to grab collateral without permission of the owner and without permission of the bezdin. So, and then he walked out with a bunch of kalim under his coat, let's say. And so who Aimer, the Nigzal says, Kelai notalti, you took much more. You took all my vessels, my kalim. Who Aimer, and the Gazlan says, Loi notalti, he didn't take any, I took what I really is supposed to be for the loan, but he claims that you took much more. Who nishba v'noitel, so the Nigzal could swear that you took much more, and he can collect it back from the Gazlan. And the reason is because the Gazlan has a high probability he did something wrong. First of all, we see him stealing, and second of all, he did it without the permission of Bezdin and without the permission of the owner. Rabbi Yehuda says, he has to admit. The Gazlan has to have a partial admission. Ketzad, Amaloi, they told him, Shnei Kelim Natalta, you took two vessels. The Nigzal says you took two vessels. The Gazlan says, Loi Natalti ele echad, I only took one, and I want to give it back to you. So I want to give it back to you. But he's claiming that you actually owe me two vessels. So since the Gazlan has to swear Moed b'miktzas, then we throw the shvu on the Nigzal, and he swears and collects the two vessels. So that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Nechba, let's say somebody got beaten up by somebody, and he wants to collect nezek tzar ripu shevish abayshis, but he has to have a high probability who did it. Ketzad, what's the case? Everybody saw this guy go into someone's house, and he was healthy, and then he came out injured, and the only one in the house was that guy, pretty much, the one that we assume did it. And the person who owns the house, the person who got injured, said, you injured me, you wounded me. I didn't wound you, and you fell by yourself. He takes it, and we believe the injured person. Rabbi Yehuda, we have to have a partial admission. Ketzad. Let's say the guy said, you gave me two wounds. You gave me two black eyes. I only gave you one black eye. One black eye, you just bumped your head into a wall. So then again, you have a moed b'miktzas. Then we'll ask the nechbal to make the victim to make a shvuah. Now back to the Mishnah. Of the bottom line of Memdal and Beis. Let's say you have a moed b'miktzas. The defendant, we don't believe him if he would swear. He's a moed b'miktzas, he's a defendant, and he's a moed b'miktzas, and he's really supposed to swear. But we don't let him swear because we assume that he's going to lie. How do we know he's a liar? Ketzad, we go to Amid Aleph, we saw him swear falsely on Shavuos Edis. We saw him one time swear falsely on Shavuos Pekadon. We saw him even, and there he's doing an avera to Hashem, to avera to people. Even if we saw him make a Shavuos Shav, he said a piece of gold is silver, right? A chair is a table. He swore for nothing. So he did a big avera, which Yechayev, if he did a big avera in Shavuah. So because he did a Avera in Shvuah, we don't trust him in a Shvuah. So therefore, the defendant would not be making the Shvuah. We turn and make the claimant make the Shvuah, and he could collect. Normally, the defendant swears and he doesn't have to pay, as we started this Mishnah. But here, because the defendant is a person of not reputable character, trustworthy when it comes to a shvuah, therefore we turn the shvuah onto the claimant. Malva beribis, mafrichi yoinim, sechari shvius. Again, even if they weren't a pasul daraisa, let's say they were a gambler or somebody who does business with interest, and or somebody who is training birds to steal, or somebody who does business on shmita. All these things are isur d'Rabbanan. So the defendant is somebody who is not a good edus midrabanan, so we won't trust his shvua midrabanan. Then his counterpart, the claimant, will be swearing and collecting. But what happens? Let's say the claimant is somebody you don't trust in a shvua, and the defendant is somebody you don't trust in a shvua. There, the shvua goes back to the defendant, and since the defendant can't swear, he has to pay up. Rabbi Meir says they divide it, they split it. If they have a difference of 50, then the defendant will just pay 25. Then we said ba'achenvani al pinkase. If a grocery store has a book where they write down that you owe money, so then he has to swear that you owe the money and you have to pay. Ketzad loishi amaloi. It's not the case that we're not talking about a case. I have written in my book that you owe me 200 zuz. Because then, if we always trust a grocery store owner, then he can go over to anybody in the street and say, oh, you owe me something. You owe me money because it's written in my book. In other words, we have to have a high probability again that this store owner owes the money. Ella, what's the story over there? A guy told a grocery store, he says, give my son 200 worth of wheat, 200 saws of chitim. Or he said, give me my worker small change. A grocery store has small change, and I'm going to give you a seller, $1, a seller. So fine. Then he comes, the store owner says, Nasati, I gave your son the wheat. I gave your worker the small change. The Heinoimim, and they say, Loi natalnu, we never received anything from the storekeeper. Who nishba v'noito. So therefore, both of them, have a claim against the balabas. So who nishba v'noitlin? So the storekeeper says, who claims he followed the instructions of the balabas. So he swears and collects what he's owed from the balabas. The hey nishba v'noitlin, and they swear. The workers say we didn't get anything from the storekeeper, or the son says I never got the wheat from the storekeeper. They swear and then can collect from the balabas or from their father. But obviously somebody's lying over here because the storekeeper says I gave it to the workers. The worker says we never got anything. So one of them, and they're both swearing. So one of them is definitely lying. Amma Benanas says, Ketzad elu ve'elu boilu de shvur shav. How can we make them both swear and automatically we'll know somebody's lying? Elo hu noita shloi b'shvua v'hei noita shloi b'shvua. No swearing. They all go back to the balabas and collect their money. Amma lechenveni. A guy goes to a money changer. Chenveni is a money changer. Tainli b'dinar peris. He's not a money changer. He's also a fruit a wholesaler. And he says, Tenli bedinar Paris. I'm going to give you a dinner, but you first give me the fruits. Vinasaline, he gave him fruits, he put it, let's say, out in the street. Amaloi, so the wholesaler, the fruit wholesaler says, now Tenli Isadina, give me the dinner. Amaloi, so the purchaser said, Nisativlacha, I gave it to you, Nisatiyim ba'am mumpali. Didn't you put it in your cash register? So Yeshava Balabayas Shanasan Loyas a dinner. The Balabayas swears that he gave the dinner, and he can take the fruits that's in the streets. Amalai, another case, Tenli as a Paris. Let's say the opposite. The opposite case. If the guy says, "Give me the fruits," I gave you the dinner now. Now give me the fruits. There's fruits in the street, so let me take the fruits. Amalai, so the wholesaler says, that's not your fruits. Nisatim lacha. I gave you other fruits. And you brought it home already. So now he won't Yeshava Chenveni. The Chenveni has has to swear that he gave fruits, and he could keep the dinner that was given to it. The storekeeper can keep the dinner. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol Sha'Peris biyada yada al yoina. Whoever has the fruits, he has the upper hand. Rabbi Yehuda is going on the beginning of the Mishnah, where on the Reisha, when you told the Chenveni, give me the dinner, Paris, and the guy says the guy gave him the fruits, and now he's saying, give me back the dinner. So we said Yeshava Bal Habayis Shanasim Lo dinner. According to Rabbi Yehuda, since the fruits never came to the hands of the Balabayas, really the Chenveni would be swearing and being able to keep the fruits. New part of the Mishnah. Amal Shulchani. A person tells a money changer, Ten li b'dinar maris. Give me with a dinar small change. V'nasaline. The guy gave him the small change. So now the banker asks, Amalai ten li as a dinner. Give me the dinner. Amalai nasati lecha nasati ba'umpali. I gave you already the dinner. You put it into your cash register. Shava balabayas. The balabayas swears that he gave it to him, and that's it. He doesn't have to give a dinner. Here, Rabbi Yehuda again will say, "Ein derech shulchan litin isa shitul dinar." It's not the Shulchan Aruch would never give an isa until he took a dinar. So it's very clear that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Shulchan Aruch would swear in the Reisha. So now another case. Nasun lo yasadina amaloi tenli yasabois amaloi nesativ lecha vishlachti l'sei chiso yishav echel b'Shulchan Aruch. Now we go to another part of the Mishnah. Just like we say, now we're going to a new case. Really, there's no shvuah over here. In these cases, there should be absolutely no shvuah. But we make the person swear anyway. For example, a woman's collecting her ksuba. So the husband says, hey, didn't I pay you a little bit part of this ksuba? She says, you're right, I got paid, but you owe me the other part of the ksuba. So really, she shouldn't have to swear. But hapagemas ksuba, so she undermined the star ksuba that she has. Loiti para ela b'shvua. She cannot swear. She cannot collect the rest of the ksuba that's owed to her only if she swears. What happens? Let's say one witness tells the woman, "What are you collecting your ksuba? Didn't you get paid?" I'm a witness. One witness says you got paid. Loiti para ela b'shvua. She could only collect now with a shvua. She minachasim mishabadim. Let's say your husband sold property, and she had a lien on the property because of her ksuba. She wants to foreclose on that property that her husband sold. She could only do that with a shvua that she never got paid, that her ksuba was never paid. Well, let's say the husband died and she's collecting her ksuba. She wants to collect from the possessions of the orphans. She cannot collect only if she makes a shvua. Let's say the husband went to Medina Sayyam and they gave her a divorce. Now she's coming back with the ksuba, and her husband's not here, but she has a divorce and she has the ksuba, and she now wants to collect from the property of the husband. She cannot collect only if she swears. Now the Mishnah says, what happens, Yisoimen? They go through their father's papers and they see that their father lent monies to somebody. So they want to collect that debt. Lo yiparu ela b'shvua. They cannot collect the debt only with a shvua, and they have to take 3 shvuas. Shvua shloi pagdani abba. Our father never commanded us that this was a paid debt. V'lo amalani abba, nor when he was healthy, before he died, he didn't say anything about that this is a paid up debt. And shloi metzina bein shtar isav shel abba shtar zeh perua. We never found that our father had a receipt on this debt that it was paid up. Only then, if they make such a shvua, then they could collect the debt that's owed to their father. But they must have known their father. Their father was alive, and they had conversations with their father, and he made no mention that this debt was paid. But what happens if they were born after their father died? So will they be able to collect? So the answer is, according to Tanakama, not. Even if the child was born after the father died, So then, they can swear one shvua that they never found a receipt that this debt was paid. Obviously, they never had conversations with their father because they were born after their father died. They can still collect an outstanding loan that's owed to their father, provided they swear that they have not found a receipt that this debt was paid. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says, Yesh Edim Shama Av V'Shas Misase. If there are witnesses that the father said right before his deathbed, Shtar Zeh this loan document that I lent somebody money was never paid up, then they can collect without a shvua, because it's obviously the father swore, they have witnesses that the father claimed before he died that this debt was never paid. So then the Yisraelim can collect without a shvua. Tanna Kama disagreed, because sometimes a father will say that this debt was not paid just to make his kids look like there's money coming to them, or he wants to help his kids. So maybe the father lied. So the Tanna Kama says we won't trust the kids to collect without a shvua. Here you have the following can swear even though they're not 100% sure of their claim. Let's say hashutafin, two partners, and one partner says to the other partner, I want you to swear you didn't steal anything. I'm not sure if you stole, but it looks like you took more from the partnership than you're supposed to. Or let's say you gave money to a fund or something, and he's supposed to take a part of the profits, and you think that he took too much. So you don't know for sure. You can make him swear. Vapitropin, somebody who has power of attorney over your assets. A woman who's doing the business on behalf of her husband, the husband can say to the wife, hey, I want to make you swear that you didn't take anything extra for yourself. Or ben abayis, or let's say there's an uncle, a father died, and the uncle's now running the affairs of the business. So then the kids can make the uncle swear that he didn't take anything for himself. Amoloi, because the guy is going to say, how do you know? What's your claim? Do you have any 100% claim against me? The only claim that they have is Rishonishitishavali. They want you to swear that you didn't take anything extra. Chayev. So in these cases, they automatically put the onus on the person running the money. He should be able to make a shvua, because it's very common when you're running somebody else's money to steal a little bit for yourself. Chalku hashutva variation, but let's say the shutva was dissolved already, or the business partnership was dissolved, then you can't make the shvua anymore. This galgal shvua mamokam acher. But if one of the partners had to swear because of another business transaction, then you make him swear that he didn't steal about this transaction prior to it becoming dissolved. The galgal you could roll that he could swear about everything. And Shvias, Shemitah not only cancels a loan, but let's say somebody was a moide b'miktzas in the middle of Shemitah, and then the Shemitah year passed, he doesn't have to swear anymore. Let's start a few lines of the Gemara. The one that normally pays in the Chumash, he's the one that makes the shvua so that he does not have to pay. And the other party should receive the shvua and not make the person that made the shvua pay. So now the Gemara is going to just ask a question. You just told me that in the Torah, there's no such a thing that you swear and collect. You swear and you're exempt from paying, except in the following cases. So the first case was a sochir, an employee. Why is it that the Rabbanan made that an employee could swear that he didn't get paid and he could collect from his employer? This is a great halacha. Halachas hani hilchas ininu. Is this halacha l'Moshe b'Sinai? This is such a great takana. There's small takanas. They made a set edict over here. The Rabbanan said, really, if you think about the Chumash looking at it, the employer should swear, and he doesn't have to pay. But they made it, the Chachamim had that power to put the shvua onto the employee, and if the employee swears, he's going to collect. Mishum kedei chayev, because the employee sacrifices himself to work for the employer. So the Gemara says, just because the Sachir sacrificed himself, we punish the owner, the employer. And says the Gemara, the owner wants the employee to be able to swear, so he'll be able to find good employees. He wants that we should make it easier for an employee to collect his outstanding wages. A person wants, the employee wants that the benefit should be to the owner, so the owner is going to want to hire workers, because the owner is going to always have to pay, so he's not going to wire her workers. And said the Gemara, an owner always has to hire workers, otherwise he doesn't have a business. So the Gemara asks back, an employee needs to be hired because he's not going to have food on the table. Ella, here's the bottom line. We spoke it out in the Mishnah. The reason why an employee swears that he didn't get paid and we believe him is in Balabayas Torah b'payalavu. The Balabayas is so busy with other workers, so maybe he wasn't careful that he paid this employee. You see, the employee is only looking out for himself. An employer is looking out for other workers. Says the Gemara, then if that's the case, the employer should have to pay without the employee swearing. And says the Gemara, we don't want the employee just to trust him and walk out with his money. So we make him swear in order to appease the mind of the employer. Says the Gemara, let's make a new rule that when you pay an employee, you always have to pay with Eidim. And says the Gemara, it's always hard. If an employer always has to pay an employee with Eidim, it's going to be too much of a bother. Says the Gemara, let's make an employer always pay the employee prior to the start of the job. And says the Gemara, both the employee and the employer want to pay at the end, because the employee doesn't want to use up his money if he gets paid too early, and the employer may not have the cash to pay. Let's do another 2 minutes, then we'll stop. If it's true, if that's true that the employee is always believed, what happens if they have a machlokes of how much he's going to be paid? The employee says, I was supposed to be paid $25 an hour. And the employer says, you're supposed to be paid $15 an hour. In that case, we believe the employer. Why is that so? We always believe the employer when it comes to the price that you're paying for the employee. And says the Gemara, if you always tell me that the employer, he doesn't know what's on his mind because he's so busy, maybe he doesn't know exactly how much he agreed to pay the employee. And says the Gemara, the amount that he's paying his employees, he certainly remembers. He just doesn't know if he remembered to pay this employee. Says the Gemara, one last question. If this is true, even if enough time passed, we should always still trust the employee. But Allah Matanya, Brisa taught us, if enough time passed, and he didn't give in, then the employee doesn't swear and collect, because we trust the employer. And says the Gemara, if so much time passes, the Balabayas doesn't want to be over this avera of don't, overnight or hold back your wages for your employees. So if enough time passed, we trust the employer. Don't you say that the Balabayas may have forgotten and he's so busy to pay his employees? Maybe he forgot to pay this employee. And says the Gemara, he's not sure if he paid the guy because he didn't. The time that he's supposed to pay him didn't come yet, so he doesn't know if he prepaid or did not prepay. But let's say it came the time that he's really supposed to obligated to pay. He has his conscience reminds him and he pays, and therefore, so says the Gemara. So then you trust the employer. So says the Gemara, Will the Sachi, why don't you trust the employee? He didn't get paid. The Sachi will not be over the Avera, not those out, not steal. And says the Gemara, Gabe Balabayas, in this case, when enough time passed, so Iketre Chazaka, we have two reasons why to believe the employer. The one reason is the Ein Balabayas over Babaltorin, and our employer doesn't want to get this Avera of Baltolin, don't keep the wages that belongs to your employee. There's another reason. The employee would never let the employer let time pass without making a claim. So if enough time passes, we believe the employer. Then the employee doesn't swear and collect. We believe the employer. But if it's right when the job is finished and the employee is asking for the money and the employer says he paid it, then we say the employee is in the right and he will swear and be able to collect. Okay, we're going to stop right over here, right in the middle of the daf.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Okay.